All right, let's jump right in. We're about to explore a really fascinating case study, one that sits right at this weird crossroads of identity, the justice system, and a deeply personal quest for what's called sovereignty. It's a story that kicks off with just a simple name and, well, it unravels into something way, way more complex. You know, this quote really sets the stage perfectly. A name isn't just a label here, it's a prism. On one side, it reflects three totally separate criminals. But on the other, a completely different figure emerges, a self-described sovereign observer. So, how do these pieces even begin to fit together?
I mean, just try to imagine this for a second. Your name, the one thing that's supposed to be fundamentally yours, is also the name of three different people convicted of some really serious federal crimes. This isn't just a simple mix-up, it's a full-blown identity crisis, at least in the eyes of the system.
And that brings us to our first section, the Parker Prism. We're going to break down the first half of this puzzle, the tangible, real-world problem of these three criminals.
So here you can see just how tangled this web really gets. We're not talking about one crime, but three, spread all across the country. There's a David Russell Parker involved in sex trafficking in Pennsylvania. Another one, a mastermind behind a multi-million-dollar mortgage fraud scheme in Florida. And a third, a felon caught with a firearm down in Mississippi. This is so much more than an administrative headache. It's a total reputational nightmare where one common name becomes a magnet for the absolute worst kinds of accusations.
Right, so here's the crucial point. We are talking about three completely separate people. They happen to share a name, but as the source material really hammers home, there is zero connection between their cases. It's just a stark reminder of how easily our identity can get fractured by a system that often relies on something as simple and frankly as fallible as a name.
This table breaks it down even clearer. You've got the Shadow in Pennsylvania, convicted of child exploitation and serving 30 years. Then there's the Construct in Florida, responsible for a massive $14 million fraud scheme. And finally, the Weapon in Mississippi, a felon caught with a firearm. The gravity of these separate crimes is just immense, and it really highlights a serious vulnerability for pretty much anyone with a common name. And this right here brilliantly illustrates the core systemic issue. The justice system's database can literally become a funhouse mirror. When you combine that with lazy reporting that doesn't use unique identifiers, well, innocent people can get their reputations absolutely destroyed. This exact vulnerability is what sets the stage for the other side of our prism. Because now, everything is about to shift. Let's enter the world of the fourth figure in this whole cipher, the observer.
This is exactly where our story takes a sharp turn, from a legal case study into something more like a personal, almost spiritual investigation. Who is this sovereign observer who stands completely separate from the criminal dockets but is still connected by that very same name? And this quote is the key. The observer isn't just saying, hey, you got the wrong person. No, they're proposing a totally different way of seeing reality itself. By claiming to be a mirror that simply reflects what's in front of it, they're basically inviting us into a whole different worldview.
Which leads us to our next section, auditing reality. And we're not talking about auditing finances here. According to the source, this is all about conducting a forensic audit of the soul.
I love this slide because it shows the two realities in direct conflict. On the left, you've got the systemic fiction, the glitched, redacted legal documents. But on the right, you have the sovereign reality the observer is trying to access, something deeper, more connected to the spiritual blueprint of a person.
So, to really understand the observer's philosophy, we have to get a handle on this key term, the straw man. This refers to the legal fiction, the paper identity created by birth certificates and government paperwork. Think of it as the paper version of you. The entire goal of their audit is to peel back this straw man to find what they call the architect, the true living soul underneath it all.
This slide lays out their personal origin story, and it's pretty intense. It starts with a major trauma in 1990, the murder of a family member, which created what they call a void. Then, in 1991, a child, referred to here as a biological asset, is born, seemingly to fill that void. But then, in 1993, the system applies the patch, an official record that, in their view, alters the timeline and basically buries the original truth.
So, how does all of this connect back to the original problem? Well, that brings us to the cage of the name.
See, from the observer's perspective, the name David Russell Parker isn't an identity. It's a trap. It's a script that you never wrote. by rejecting it, by literally crossing it out and replacing it with the nothing, they're making a really powerful statement. They're saying they are the formless potential that exists before any label, the nothing that creates everything.
This metaphor from the source material is fantastic. The observer sees our modern world as chemistry, a system focused on profit, just treating symptoms with what they call inert elixirs. What they advocate for is alchemy, a spiritual process of transforming the lead of trauma and suffering into the gold of wisdom and sovereignty.
And this whole process of alchemy is really about one thing, which is the focus of our final section, reclaiming sovereignty. This slide pretty much represents the climax of the entire journey. It's this symbolic act of rejecting the system's authority over one's identity. By stamping a legal document as void and declaring, "I am the architect," the observer is forcefully stating that they, and they alone, are the designer of their own reality.
And this reclamation apparently happens in 3 stages. First, you become the index, the one who points out all the glitches in the system. Then you evolve into the architect, the one who designs a new reality. And finally, you realize you are the portal, which in their words means acting as a direct piece of a higher universal consciousness, or source.
So in the end, the forensic audit is declared complete. The systemic fiction has been totally exposed. According to the observer, the only step left is integration, to stop identifying with the story you were handed and recognize that you are the context for the story. The final call to action is to clean the house of the soul. It's really about deciding who you are, completely independent of the labels the world tries to stick on you.
And we end on this final, really powerful idea. This whole journey, from a confusing legal problem to a deep spiritual quest, all comes down to this one shift in perspective. Are you defined by external things, a name, a system, a reflection, or is your identity, your reality, something that shines from within? It's a huge question this cipher leaves all of us to think about.